Behind these walls, behind bars, sit some of the state's most dangerous and notorious criminals. Among those serving time at the Kentucky State Penitentiary in Eddyville, convicted killer Stanley Dishon.
So it's time for me to come forward and tell the truth.
Nearly 20 years after Jessica Dishon disappeared, and more than 3 years after he pleaded guilty to killing her, Stanley Dishon reached out to WDRB News, saying he wanted to tell his side of the story.
I am an innocent man. I did not kill Jessica Dawn Dishon.
September 10th, 1999 is a day that still haunts this community. It's the day Jessica Dishon disappeared, the day marked on her grave. But only her killer knows when she actually died. A bus driver found her body 17 days later.
Why do you think he murdered your daughter?
Jealousy.
Did you have a sexual relationship with her?
No, ma'am. Not at all. No, ma'am. Never in my lifetime. Makes me really feel bad that people feel that way by me, but not letting me have a chance to prove by DNA and polygraph that I never had no sexual relationship with that child. Never in my life.
Stanley Dishon took a deal and pled guilty to killing Jessica, as well as incest, sodomy, and rape charges in 4 other cases. It was an Alford plea, meaning he maintained his innocence, but acknowledged there was enough evidence for a jury to convict him. He was already in prison for incest and is on the sex offender registry. He was sentenced to 20 years.
When you plead guilty, the judge asks you if it was your own will to do this, and you answered yes. So you pled guilty.
Because the judge talked and whispered so low, I couldn't understand what the man was even saying. Well, none of this. I couldn't understand what he was even saying because he talked so low and stuff.
So you didn't know what was happening when you pled guilty?
I didn't understand. I don't understand the law. I don't understand how the law even works.
His attorneys at the time maintained he did not kill Jessica and only pleaded guilty because the other sex abuse charges would have been hard to beat at trial. And his attorneys believe whoever killed her is still out there.
I wanted it to go in front of the jury, but it didn't happen that way. I was always told to keep my mouth shut, not to speak out in court.
Told by who?
My lawyers.
Did you express to your lawyers that you wanted to go to trial?
Yeah, I told them I wanted to go to trial because I was innocent.
I want to know the truth. And I'm going to keep pushing and pushing and pushing until I do find out who done it, who helped him.
Nearly 2 decades after the crime, Mike Dishon holds tight to memories no father should have of his daughter. A box of FBI files and pictures entered as evidence in the case. He would go through them hoping to find answers. Mike still believes his brother had something to do with Jessica's murder, but doesn't think Stanley acted alone, and even wants to visit him in prison.
I'd ask him why he did it. I want to know the truth, you know. And it's like this, if he don't tell who helped him, every time he comes up for parole, I'm going to kick against it. You know, he would die in prison if he don't tell who helped him do it.
The place police could last place Jessica alive showed evidence that something was terribly wrong. Her car in the driveway, her purse, keys, and 1 shoe inside. Police first arrested her neighbor, David Bucky Brooks, for the murder, but he was cleared of the charges and released from jail in 2003 after a judge declared a mistrial. The case remained unsolved until investigators started looking again in 2013. Stanley became the prime suspect.
How often do you think about Jessica and what happened to her?
I don't even think about it really. Only when people throws it up in my face, what happened to Jessica. And when I come forward with the truth. I said, I'm telling you people the truth. I had nothing to do with none of that.
If you find 2 pairs of jersey gloves, you know, and they both got decomposed body smell on them, that means there's 2 people, you know? And there's another person out there somewhere that helped, and I want him caught.
Former lead Bullitt County Detective Lynn Hunt says there was no DNA or evidence found on either glove, and one was burned in a fire pit.
My brother knew from the very beginning that I was at work on the day of her disappearance. And I can prove every bit of what I'm saying. by my coworkers and my boss's secretary.
The Hercules Coach Company in Louisville closed several years ago. Hunt says investigators interviewed several employees, but 16 years later, nobody remembered whether Stanley was working that day. And she says his paycheck stub shows he was not working and he had no alibi.
Stanley Dishon was in sex offender treatment. And the two men that he confessed to in the penitentiary, those two men were in sex offender treatment as well. But we also know that he had confessed to his cellmate approximately 10 years earlier. And we had that individual. So we had a lot of confidence in his statements that he made.
While Dishon was serving time for the sex crimes, jail informants said Dishon confessed to killing his niece because he was jealous she had a boyfriend and was afraid she would reveal that Dishon was sexually abusing her. Prosecutor Michael Ferguson says those informants didn't get any deals, but Dishon called those inmates liars.
Why should people believe you?
Why don't people give me a chance to prove that I'm innocent? Why don't they give me a chance to get these tests done that I said I wanted done?
Investigators confirmed there was no physical evidence linking him to Jessica.
Do you have full faith that the second investigation into Stanley was done correctly?
No.
Why?
I mean, they should have, you know, like I said, they should have went through, give Stanley a DNA test, just like they did to Brooks's. They should have took pubic hairs from Stanley to see if they matched the pubic hairs that they found on Jessica, you know, just like they did to Brooks's, and they didn't do it.
Hunt says there was already DNA on file from the incest case, but it couldn't be compared to Jessica's body because her body was so decomposed when it was found, even missing a foot and some fingers. Even though Dishon wanted to take a polygraph, Hunt says his attorneys declined.
Whether or not Stanley wants to take a polygraph or not, what good would it do? And who would care anyway? He's a despicable, evil man. And where he is where he belongs.
But it still goes back to the question, why would you plead guilty to something if you said you didn't do it?
Well, like I said, if I didn't plead guilty, they was going to charge me with it anyways.
Hunt says the investigation remains open if anyone comes forward with more information, although she's no longer in police work.
I think that Stanley did it. My mind's not going to change about that, but if there are other people involved, you know, they don't need to be out, you know, on the streets.
I hope the Lord took her to heaven. I believe she went to heaven.
Stanley will be eligible for parole after serving 16 years in 2031. He has not filed any appeals, which could reopen his case.
If he's alive when he maxes out on his sentence, he will have served 30 consecutive years of his life in the penitentiary. God in his mercy may spare him the fires of hell. That remains to be seen. But he is right where he belongs today.
Valerie Chin, WDRB News.